The morning sun cast golden rays across the manicured gardens of Buckingham Palace as groundskeepers made final preparations for an extraordinary gathering. Inside the royal residence, staff members moved with practiced precision, arranging chairs in the grand reception hall and polishing the ornate silver tea service that would soon host some of cricket's most celebrated figures. Queen Elizabeth II stood at her private study window, watching the careful preparations below. At 93, she had witnessed countless ceremonial events, but today held special significance. The Cricket World Cup was approaching, and tradition demanded that the captains of all participating nations be formally received at the palace. This ceremony, dating back decades, represented more than protocol. It symbolized the Commonwealth's shared love for the gentleman's game. Her private secretary knocked gently before entering. "Your Majesty, the Duke of Sussex has arrived and is reviewing the guest list in the Blue Room," he announced with characteristic formality. The Queen nodded, straightening her pearl necklace, the same strand she had worn to similar cricket receptions for over 40 years. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, had always shown genuine enthusiasm for sporting events. Unlike many royal duties that required careful diplomatic navigation, cricket receptions allowed him to express authentic passion for competition and camaraderie. He understood the captain's pressure and excitement, having experienced similar feelings during his military service and various charitable sporting endeavors. The first captain to arrive was Virat Kohli of India, his team bus pulling through the palace gates at precisely 10:30. Dressed in the official Indian cricket blazer, Kohli stepped out with the confidence of a man who had led his team to numerous victories, yet showed appropriate deference to the royal setting. Palace protocol officers guided him through the entrance procedures, explaining the proper etiquette for meeting both the Queen and the Duke. Following closely behind came Kane Williamson of New Zealand, his quiet leadership style evident even in how he observed his surroundings. The New Zealand captain had always been known for his thoughtful approach to the game, and this same careful consideration showed as he took in the palace's magnificent architecture and rich history displayed in every corridor. Australia's Aaron Finch arrived with the swagger typical of Australian cricket captains throughout history. His team had won the World Cup multiple times, and this confidence translated into easy conversation with palace staff as they escorted him to the reception area. Despite the formal setting, Finch's natural humor began to emerge as he joked quietly with other arriving captains. The South African captain, Faf du Plessis, brought a different energy entirely. His team carried the hopes of a nation still finding its place in post-apartheid international cricket, and this responsibility weighed visibly on his shoulders. Yet his warm smile and genuine appreciation for the honor of being received at Buckingham Palace shone through his nervousness. England's captain, Owen Morgan, felt the unique pressure of leading the host nation. Born in Ireland, but representing England, he understood the complex emotions surrounding cricket and national identity. Today's reception would mark the beginning of intense scrutiny as England sought their first World Cup victory on home soil. As each captain arrived, palace staff conducted subtle assessments of personalities and potential conversation topics that might interest the royal hosts. The Queen was known for her remarkable ability to find common ground with visitors from all walks of life, while Prince Harry's military background and sporting interests provided natural connection points with competitive athletes. The Pakistani captain Sarfraz Ahmed arrived with visible emotion, understanding the historical significance of his presence at the palace. Pakistan's cricket team had overcome numerous challenges to reach this World Cup, and being welcomed by British royalty represented validation of their journey and dedication. Sri Lankan captain Dimith Karunaratan, relatively new to international captaincy, showed the careful respect of someone still adjusting to leadership responsibilities at the highest level. His team's recent struggles made this moment even more precious, representing hope for renewed success on cricket's biggest stage. Bangladesh captain Mashraf Mortaza, despite carrying a career's worth of injuries, walked with the dignity of someone who had elevated his nation's cricket from minnows to respected competitors. His presence at the palace reception marked how far Bangladesh cricket had traveled in recent decades. The final captain to arrive was Afghanistan's Gulbuddin Naib, leading the newest test-playing nation. His team's qualification for the World Cup represented one of cricket's greatest underdog stories, and being received at Buckingham Palace felt almost surreal for someone who had grown up playing cricket in refugee camps. As the captains gathered in the reception hall's anteroom, natural conversations began to flow despite the formal setting. Years of playing against each other had created mutual respect that transcended national rivalries. They shared quiet observations about the palace's grandeur and speculation about the upcoming tournament, their voices carrying the mixture of excitement and nervousness that defined elite athletes before major competitions. Palace staff made final adjustments to the reception hall, ensuring that each captain would have appropriate space to interact comfortably with the royal hosts. The ceremony would follow traditional protocols while allowing for the genuine human connections that made such events memorable rather than merely ceremonial. The Queen's approach to these receptions had evolved over decades of hosting international athletes. She had learned to balance royal dignity with genuine curiosity about their sporting achievements and personal journeys. Her questions would be informed and specific, demonstrating the preparation that characterized all her public engagements. Prince Harry brought a different dynamic to royal sporting events. His own competitive experiences and natural ease with athletes created opportunities for conversations that went beyond polite formality. The captains would find in him someone who understood the psychological pressures of high-stakes competition and could speak their language. As the appointed time approached, palace staff began the careful orchestration that would bring together these cricket leaders with British royalty. The ceremony ahead would mark the official beginning of the World Cup journey, creating memories that would last long after the tournament's final ball was bowled. Each captain carried not just his own hopes, but the dreams of millions of cricket fans who would be watching their every move in the weeks to come. The grand reception hall doors opened with ceremonial precision as the Queen entered, accompanied by Prince Harry. The 10 cricket captains, who had been engaged in quiet conversation moments before, immediately fell silent and arranged themselves according to the protocol briefing they had received earlier. Each man represented not only his team, but his entire nation's cricketing heritage, and the weight of this responsibility showed in their respectful postures. Queen Elizabeth moved with the graceful authority that came from 7 decades of public service. Her deep blue dress, chosen specifically to complement the formal nature of the occasion, bore a diamond cricket brooch, a detail that few would notice but which demonstrated her attention to making guests feel honored. Her handbag, carried as always, contained personal notes about each captain that her staff had prepared to help facilitate meaningful conversations. Prince Harry followed slightly behind, his military bearing evident even in civilian dress. His eyes immediately sought out each captain, already calculating which conversations might flow most naturally. Having served with soldiers from many Commonwealth nations, he understood the unique psychology of men who carried the hopes of their countries into battle, whether on cricket pitches or battlefields. "Gentlemen," the Queen began, her voice carrying clearly across the ornate room, "welcome to Buckingham Palace. It gives me great pleasure to receive the captains who will lead their nations in the forthcoming Cricket World Cup." Her words, while formal, carried genuine warmth that immediately put the visiting athletes at ease. The first individual introduction brought Virat Kohli forward. As he approached, his usual aggressive confidence on the cricket field transformed into respectful deference, yet his natural charisma remained evident. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head appropriately, "it is an extraordinary honor to represent India at this reception." The Queen studied him with the keen observation skills that had served her throughout countless diplomatic encounters. "Captain Kohli, I understand this will be your first World Cup as captain. How does leading India compare to your experiences as a player?" Her question demonstrated the research that preceded every royal engagement. Kohli's face lit up as he realized the Queen's genuine interest in cricket. "Your Majesty, the responsibility is immense. India has over 1 billion cricket fans, and each one believes we should win every match. But this pressure also drives us to perform at our highest level. His response showed both humility and confidence, qualities the Queen had observed in many successful leaders across various fields. Prince Harry stepped forward to join the conversation. "I can relate to that pressure, though perhaps not on quite the same scale," he said with a slight smile. "During my military service, knowing that people back home were counting on us certainly focused the mind wonderfully." The comparison resonated with Kohli, who nodded appreciatively. Military service and international cricket captaincy shared common elements of leadership under pressure, decision-making with incomplete information, and maintaining team morale during difficult periods. Kane Williamson was introduced next, his quiet dignity immediately apparent to both royal hosts. The New Zealand captain possessed a thoughtful quality that distinguished him from more flamboyant cricketing personalities, and this caught the Queen's attention immediately. "Captain Williamson," she observed, "New Zealand has often been described as cricket's most sporting nation. How do you maintain that reputation while remaining competitive at the highest level?" The question revealed her understanding of the delicate balance between sporting excellence and sportsmanship. Williamson considered his response carefully before speaking. "Your Majesty, we believe that respect for opponents and officials actually enhances our performance. When players focus on the game itself, rather than artificial conflicts, they often discover capabilities they didn't know they possessed." Prince Harry nodded approvingly at this philosophy. "That's similar to what we learned in Afghanistan," he said. "The units that worked best together, that maintained mutual respect even under extreme stress, consistently outperformed those that relied on aggression alone." The conversation flow between military experience and cricket leadership continued as Aaron Finch was presented. The Australian captain's natural humor immediately emerged, even within the formal palace setting. "Your Majesty, Prince Harry," Finch said with characteristic Australian directness, "I have to admit, this is considerably more intimidating than facing a 150-kilometer-per-hour bouncer." His comment drew genuine laughter from both royal hosts, breaking down remaining formality barriers. The Queen, who had hosted numerous Australian cricket teams over the years, smiled knowingly. "Captain Finch, I have observed that Australian cricketers often perform better when they feel relaxed. Perhaps today's intimidation will work in your opponent's favor." Her subtle humor surprised Finch, who had expected purely ceremonial conversation. "Your Majesty, you might have a point there. Though I suspect once we're out in the middle, the palace nerves will be forgotten pretty quickly." Prince Harry laughed at this exchange. "I imagine it's like parachute training, terrifying until you're actually jumping, then instinct takes over." His military analogies continued to resonate with the captains, who faced similar transitions from nervous preparation to instinctive performance. Faf du Plessis approached with visible emotion when his turn came. The South African captain carried the hopes of a cricket-mad nation that had experienced both triumph and heartbreak in previous World Cups, and this history seemed to weigh on him even in the palace's grandeur. "Captain du Plessis," the Queen said gently, recognizing his emotional state, "South Africa has contributed so much to cricket's development over the decades. What does leading your country in this tournament mean to you personally?" Du Plessis took a moment to compose himself before responding. "Your Majesty, cricket in South Africa represents unity in a way that few other things can achieve. When our team plays well, the entire country celebrates together, regardless of any other differences. Being captain means carrying that responsibility for bringing people together." The Queen nodded thoughtfully. Throughout her reign, she had witnessed sport's unique ability to transcend social and political divisions, and Du Plessis's words clearly resonated with her own experiences. Prince Harry placed a supportive hand on Du Plessis's shoulder. "That's an enormous responsibility, but also an incredible opportunity. Some of my most meaningful experiences have come from seeing how shared challenges can unite people who might otherwise never connect." Owen Morgan's introduction carried special significance as the host nation's captain. The pressure of leading England's quest for their first World Cup victory was evident in his careful demeanor, though his experience in previous tournaments provided visible confidence. Captain Morgan, the Queen observed, leading the host nation must present unique challenges. How do you balance the expectations of home crowds with your team's preparation? Morgan had clearly prepared for this question. Your Majesty, we're trying to view the home support as an advantage rather than additional pressure. English cricket fans understand the game deeply, and their encouragement can lift players to performances they might not achieve elsewhere. Prince Harry, who had grown up attending cricket matches at various English grounds, nodded in agreement. There's something special about English cricket crowds. They appreciate good cricket from any team, but when England plays well at home, the atmosphere becomes electric. The reception continued as each remaining captain was individually welcomed. Sarfaraz Ahmed spoke passionately about Pakistan cricket's resilience, while Dimith Karunaran discussed Sri Lanka's proud cricket traditions. Mashraf Morteza, despite his physical limitations from years of injuries, radiated determination that impressed both royal hosts. Finally, Gulbuddin Naib's introduction provided perhaps the most moving moment of the reception. The Afghan captain's journey from refugee camps to leading his nation at cricket's premier tournament embodied sport's power to transform lives and communities. Captain Naib, the Queen said with evident admiration, Afghanistan's cricket development represents one of sport's most remarkable stories. What do you hope this World Cup will mean for cricket in your country? Naib's response came from the heart. Your Majesty, cricket has given our people hope during very difficult times. Every young person in Afghanistan who sees us playing here will believe that they too can achieve extraordinary things, regardless of their circumstances. The formal reception was transforming into something deeper, a gathering of leaders who understood that their roles extended far beyond cricket statistics and tournament results. They were ambassadors for their nations, role models for young people, and guardians of cricket's values and traditions. As tea was served in the palace's finest china, conversations continued to flow naturally between the cricket captains and their royal hosts. The initial nervousness had given way to genuine dialogue about leadership, pressure, responsibility, and the unique position that international sport occupied in an increasingly connected world. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the palace windows created an almost ethereal atmosphere as conversations deepened between the cricket captains and their royal hosts. What had begun as formal protocol was evolving into meaningful exchanges about leadership, cultural responsibility, and the profound impact that sport could have on societies worldwide. Prince Harry found himself drawn into an intense discussion with Mashraf Morteza about overcoming physical limitations. The Bangladesh captain's career had been marked by numerous injuries, yet his determination to continue playing and leading his team resonated strongly with the prince's own experiences supporting wounded veterans. Captain Morteza, Prince Harry said with evident respect, I've worked with many injured servicemen who had to redefine what success meant for them. How do you maintain your effectiveness as a leader when your body can't always do what your mind demands? Morteza's weathered face showed the accumulated wisdom of years spent battling both opponents and his own physical limitations. Prince Harry, I learned that true leadership isn't about being the strongest or fastest person on the field. It's about understanding each team member's capabilities and helping them exceed their own expectations. My injuries taught me to listen more carefully and think more strategically. This perspective fascinated the Queen, who had observed countless leaders across 7 decades of public service. That's remarkably similar to what I've noticed in successful political leaders, she interjected thoughtfully. Those who rely solely on personal charisma often struggle when circumstances change, while those who develop others tend to create lasting impact. The conversation expanded to include other captains who had gathered nearby. Gulbuddin Naib spoke about leading players who had learned cricket in refugee camps, where creativity and determination mattered more than perfect facilities or formal coaching. His experiences provided stark contrast to captains from cricket's traditional powerhouses, yet his insights proved equally valuable. In Afghanistan, we learned to see opportunities where others might see only obstacles. Nabe explained, his English careful but passionate. When you have no proper pitches, you learn to adapt to any surface. When you have no expensive equipment, you learn to make the most of whatever tools are available. These lessons serve us well against teams that might have better resources. Kane Williamson nodded appreciatively at this perspective. That's fascinating, Captain Nabe. In New Zealand, we often talk about punching above our weight because we have a smaller player pool than other countries. But hearing your story makes me realize we've actually had significant advantages compared to what your team has overcome. The Queen found herself genuinely moved by these exchanges. Throughout her reign, she had presided over the transformation of the Commonwealth from an empire to a voluntary association of independent nations, and cricket had provided a constant thread connecting these diverse countries. Seeing these captains interact with mutual respect despite their vastly different backgrounds reinforced her belief in sport's diplomatic power. A palace photographer discreetly captured moments throughout the reception, understanding that these images would become historical records of an important sporting and cultural event. The photographs showed not just formal poses, but genuine human connections forming between individuals who might otherwise never have met. Virat Kohli and Aaron Finch found themselves discussing the mental pressures of captaincy with Prince Harry, who listened intently to their strategies for maintaining focus under intense scrutiny. The prince's military background provided unexpected insights into stress management techniques that cricket captains could adapt for their own use. The media attention is relentless, Finch admitted frankly. Every decision gets analyzed, every expression gets photographed, every word gets quoted. Sometimes it feels like the actual cricket is just one part of the job. Prince Harry laughed knowingly. I can definitely relate to that feeling. The key thing I learned was distinguishing between criticism that might help you improve and noise that just distracts from your mission. The trick is developing thick enough skin to ignore the unhelpful stuff while staying open to legitimate feedback. Kohli nodded vigorously at this advice. That's exactly right. In India, the cricket captain gets more attention than most movie stars. Learning to focus on performance while acknowledging the fans' passion has been one of my biggest challenges. Meanwhile, Owen Morgan was engaged in a separate conversation with the Queen about the unique pressures of hosting major sporting events. Her Majesty's experience with multiple Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, and other international competitions provided valuable perspective on managing public expectations. Your Majesty, Morgan said thoughtfully, how does the host nation balance wanting to showcase their country positively with a competitive desire to win at all costs? The Queen considered this question carefully before responding. I've observed that the most successful host nations are those that remember their primary role as hosts first, competitors second. When you ensure that all participants feel welcomed and valued, you often discover that your own team performs better as well. Generosity of spirit tends to create positive energy that benefits everyone. This insight resonated with Morgan, who had been wrestling with exactly these competing pressures as England's captain. The Queen's perspective offered a framework for approaching the tournament that could potentially reduce rather than increase the stress on his team. Faf du Plessis had been quietly listening to various conversations while struggling with his own emotions about representing South Africa. The weight of his country's cricket history, including both triumphs and disappointments, seemed to press heavily on his shoulders even in the palace's magnificent surroundings. Prince Harry noticed du Plessis's contemplative mood and approached him with characteristic directness. Captain du Plessis, you seem to be carrying quite a burden today. Is there something about leading South Africa that's particularly weighing on you? Du Plessis appreciated the prince's straightforward approach. Prince Harry, South African cricket represents so much more than just sport for our people. When we do well, the entire country celebrates together in a way that transcends all our other divisions. But when we fail, especially in major tournaments, it feels like we're letting down everyone who believes that cricket can help heal our nation's wounds. The Queen overheard this exchange and moved closer to join the conversation. Captain du Plessis, I've had the privilege of visiting South Africa several times and witnessing firsthand how sport can unite people across traditional boundaries. The pressure you feel is real, but remember that your team's efforts to compete with dignity and passion already contribute to that healing, regardless of results. Her words provided comfort that du Plessis hadn't expected to find at a formal royal reception. The Queen's personal knowledge of his country's history and her genuine understanding of sport's social significance offered perspective that helped lighten the burden he had been carrying. As the reception continued, palace staff began preparing for the ceremonial conclusion that would mark the official beginning of the World Cup period. However, the natural conversations flowing between captains and royal hosts had created an atmosphere that transcended mere protocol. Sarfraz Ahmed found himself discussing Pakistani cricket's passionate fanbase with both the Queen and Prince Harry, describing how cricket matches could literally stop traffic in major cities as millions of people gathered around televisions and radios. His enthusiasm for his country's cricket culture was infectious, even in the formal palace setting. Dimith Karunaratan, initially nervous about his English language skills, discovered that his careful, thoughtful communication style actually enhanced rather than hindered meaningful conversation. The Queen's patient attention and Prince Harry's encouraging questions helped him express complex ideas about Sri Lankan cricket's role in national identity. The diversity of experiences represented by these 10 captains was remarkable. From Kohli's superstar status in cricket-obsessed India to Nabe's pioneering role in cricket's newest nation, from Morgan's pressure as host captain to Williamson's quiet leadership philosophy, each man brought unique perspectives on what it meant to represent millions of people through sporting excellence. Palace staff members, accustomed to hosting world leaders and celebrities, found themselves genuinely impressed by the quality of conversation and mutual respect displayed by the cricket captains. These athletes demonstrated that international sport at its highest level required not just physical and technical skills, but sophisticated understanding of cultural diplomacy and social responsibility. As the formal reception time approached its conclusion, both the Queen and Prince Harry recognized that something special had occurred. What could have been merely a ceremonial obligation had become a meaningful gathering that highlighted sport's capacity to bring together diverse individuals around shared values of competition, respect, and excellence. The cricket captains themselves seemed to sense that they had participated in something more significant than a standard diplomatic event. The conversations had created connections and insights that would likely influence their approach to the upcoming tournament and their ongoing roles as international sporting ambassadors. As the formal reception entered its final phase, the Queen made an unexpected decision that surprised even her experienced private secretary. Instead of concluding with a traditional group photograph and farewell, she invited the cricket captains to join her for an impromptu tour of the palace's cricket memorabilia collection, housed in a rarely accessed wing that most official visitors never saw. "Gentlemen," she announced with evident pleasure, "I believe you might appreciate seeing some items from cricket's history that we have preserved here at the palace. Some of these pieces connect directly to your own cricket nation's heritage." Prince Harry's eyes lit up at this spontaneous addition to the scheduled program. His grandmother's deep knowledge of Commonwealth sporting history never ceased to amaze him, and he knew that the captains were about to receive an extraordinary private education in cricket's royal connections. The procession through the palace corridors felt different now, less formal and more like a grandfather sharing treasures with interested family members. The captains walked with heightened curiosity, understanding that they were being granted access to something genuinely special rather than merely completing protocol obligations. The cricket collection room, though smaller than the palace's main galleries, contained artifacts that would have made any cricket museum curator envious. Display cases lined the walls, filled with bats, balls, photographs, and documents that chronicle cricket's evolution from English county game to global phenomenon. "This bat," the Queen explained, stopping before a beautifully preserved piece of willow, was used by Don Bradman during his farewell tour of England in 1948. He presented it to my father, King George VI, who was an enthusiastic cricket follower. The Australian captain Aaron Finch approached the display case with reverence typically reserved for religious artifacts. Bradman remained cricket's most legendary figure in Australia, and seeing his actual equipment in the royal collection created an almost mystical connection to cricket history. "Your Majesty," Finch said quietly, "every Australian cricket captain grows up hearing Bradman stories. To see his bat here, preserved as part of British royal history, shows how cricket connects our nations even beyond the sporting competition." The Queen nodded approvingly at this observation. "That was precisely why my father wanted to preserve it here. He understood that cricket represented something deeper than international rivalry. It was a shared language that allowed different cultures to understand and respect each other." Moving to another display, Prince Harry pointed out a collection of photographs showing various royal family members attending cricket matches over the decades. "This one," he said, indicating a picture of himself as a young boy watching cricket at Lord's, "was actually the first time I really understood what people meant when they talked about cricket's special atmosphere." Virat Kohli studied the photographs with fascination, seeing British cricket grounds he knew well from touring, but captured during different eras when fashion, crowds, and even the game itself looked distinctly different. "It's remarkable how cricket has evolved while maintaining its essential character," he observed thoughtfully. Kane Williamson found himself drawn to a display featuring early cricket equipment from various Commonwealth nations, including primitive bats and balls from New Zealand's colonial period. "These remind me of stories my grandfather told about playing cricket with makeshift equipment on farms where proper pitches didn't exist," he said with obvious emotion. The Queen moved to join Williamson at this particular display. "New Zealand cricket has always impressed me with its ingenuity and determination. Some of the most memorable cricket matches I've witnessed have involved New Zealand teams that refuse to accept limitations imposed by resources or expectations." Gulbert Nabe stood before a world map marking the global spread of cricket, his finger tracing the path from England to various Commonwealth nations and beyond. The map showed cricket's journey to Afghanistan as one of its most recent expansions, and seeing this progression visualized in the royal collection filled him with pride for his country's place in cricket history. "Captain Nabe," the Queen said, approaching the map display, "Afghanistan's cricket development represents cricket's continuing evolution. Your nation's journey from complete outsider to World Cup participant demonstrates that cricket's family continues to grow." The emotional impact of these words on Nabe was visible to everyone present. For someone who had learned cricket in refugee camps, being recognized by British royalty as a legitimate part of cricket's ongoing story represented validation beyond anything he had imagined possible. Mashraf Morteza discovered a section dedicated to cricket's role in post-independence Commonwealth development, including documentation of Bangladesh's journey from associate member to full status. The physical evidence of his nation's cricket progression, preserved in the royal collection, provided tangible proof of how far Bangladesh cricket had traveled. "This photograph," the Queen explained, showing Morteza an image from Bangladesh's first test match, "capture a moment that many cricket experts thought they might never see. Your nation's persistence in developing cricket infrastructure despite numerous challenges has been truly remarkable." Prince Harry engaged Sarfraz Ahmed in discussion about a display featuring cricket's diplomatic role during various Commonwealth political tensions. "Cricket has sometimes provided the only communication channel between nations experiencing political difficulties," the Prince observed. "Pakistani cricket teams have often served as unofficial ambassadors when formal diplomacy was complicated." The Pakistani captain nodded thoughtfully at this analysis. "Cricket gives us opportunities to represent our country's positive qualities when other news might be negative," he agreed. "When Pakistani cricketers perform well and conduct themselves with dignity, it changes how people around the world think about our nation." Owen Morgan found particular interest in displays documenting Irish cricket history, given his own background representing Ireland before joining the England team. The Queen's collection included artifacts from Irish cricket's development that Morgan had never seen before. Your journey from Irish to English cricket represents cricket's complex relationship with national identity. The Queen observed gently. Sports sometimes requires difficult personal choices that go beyond simple patriotism. Morgan appreciated the Queen's understanding of his situation's complexity. Your Majesty, cricket taught me that you can honor your heritage while also embracing new opportunities. Both Ireland and England have supported my career in different ways. Faf du Plessis discovered displays related to South African cricket's isolation period and subsequent return to international competition. The documentation showed how cricket had served as both a symbol of division and eventual reconciliation. Cricket's role in South Africa's transition demonstrates sport's power to heal as well as divide. The Queen noted, observing du Plessis's emotional reaction to this part of the collection. Your current team represents hopes that extend far beyond cricket results. Dimith Karunaratne found himself studying artifacts from Sri Lankan cricket's golden period, including items from their 1996 World Cup victory. The Royal Collection's documentation of Sri Lankan cricket achievements provided historical context for his current leadership responsibilities. As the private tour concluded, the cricket captains had experienced something unprecedented in their careers. They had not merely been received by royalty as visiting athletes, but had been welcomed into cricket's historical continuum as preserved by the British monarchy. The Queen's decision to share these artifacts reflected her understanding that these 10 men were not just tournament participants, but temporary custodians of cricket traditions that extended across centuries and continents. Their upcoming performances would add new chapters to the story preserved in the Royal Collection. Prince Harry recognized that his grandmother had created a moment that transcended typical royal protocol. By connecting these contemporary cricket leaders with their sports-rich heritage, she had provided context and inspiration that might influence their approach to the challenging weeks ahead. The captains themselves understood that they had been granted extraordinary access to cricket's royal connections. The experience had transformed their understanding of their roles from merely leading teams to serving as ambassadors for cricket's continuing evolution and global development. As they prepared to return to the reception hall for the ceremonial conclusion, each captain carried with them new appreciation for cricket's historical significance and their own responsibilities as contemporary guardians of the game's values and traditions. The return to the main reception hall carried a different energy than the formal beginning of the afternoon. The cricket captains walked with quiet confidence, their earlier nervousness replaced by genuine appreciation for the extraordinary experience they had shared. The private tour of cricket memorabilia had transformed the occasion from ceremonial obligation into meaningful connection with their sports heritage. Queen Elizabeth positioned herself at the center of the reception hall for the concluding remarks, her posture reflecting both royal dignity and genuine warmth toward her guests. The afternoon's conversations had clearly energized her, reminding everyone present why she had remained actively engaged in public duties well into her 90s. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying clearly across the ornate room, "this afternoon has provided me with great pleasure and considerable insight into cricket's current state and future prospects. Each of you brings unique perspectives to cricket leadership, yet you share common dedication to excellence and sportsmanship that honors your sport's finest traditions." Prince Harry stood slightly to her left, his military bearing complementing her royal authority, while his relaxed demeanor reflected the genuine friendships that had begun forming during the reception. His role in facilitating conversations had proven invaluable in creating the afternoon's meaningful atmosphere. As you prepare for the World Cup, the Queen continued, "Remember that your responsibilities extend beyond winning matches, important though that goal certainly is. You represent your nation's values, your cricket traditions, and your sport's capacity to bring people together across cultural and political boundaries." These words resonated deeply with captains who had spent the afternoon discussing exactly these broader responsibilities. The Queen's understanding of their role's complexity provided validation for the pressures they faced and the significance they placed on proper conduct both on and off the field. Virat Kohli, speaking on behalf of all the captains, stepped forward to deliver their collective response. Your Majesty, Prince Harry, this reception has exceeded all our expectations. We came here today as cricket captains, but we leave with deeper understanding of our roles as ambassadors for our nations and guardians of cricket's values. His words reflected the genuine transformation that had occurred during the afternoon. The formal protocol had evolved into something more meaningful, creating connections and insights that would influence how these captains approach their upcoming responsibilities. The privilege of seeing cricket's history preserved in the royal collection, Kohli continued, reminds us that we are temporary custodians of something much larger than any individual career or tournament. We carry the hopes of our people, but we also carry cricket's reputation and future development. Aaron Finch nodded approvingly at Kohli's words, recognizing that the Indian captain had captured something important about their shared experience. Despite their national rivalries and competitive intensity, they had discovered common ground in their dedication to cricket's broader significance. The Queen smiled at Kohli's response, clearly pleased that her objectives for the reception had been achieved. Captain Kohli, your words suggest that cricket remains in capable hands. The sport's future depends not just on athletic excellence, but on leaders who understand their cultural responsibilities. Prince Harry added his own observations about the afternoon's significance. What has impressed me most today is seeing how cricket continues to evolve while maintaining its essential character. Each of you brings different backgrounds and perspectives, yet you share commitment to the values that make cricket special. Kane Williamson found himself reflecting on how the reception had changed his understanding of international cricket captaincy. The conversations with royal hosts and fellow captains have provided new frameworks for thinking about leadership under pressure and the diplomatic dimensions of sporting competition. The formal group photograph that followed captured more than ceremonial positioning. The genuine smiles and relaxed postures reflected the authentic connections that had formed during the afternoon. These images would serve as historical record of an important moment in cricket and royal history. Palace photographers worked efficiently to create individual portraits of each captain with the Queen and Prince Harry, understanding that these photographs would become treasured personal mementos as well as important documentation of the occasion. As the formal photography concluded, the captains began preparing for their departure, but the conversations continued naturally rather than ending abruptly. The afternoon had created momentum that seemed to resist formal conclusion. Gulbad and Nabe approached the Queen one final time to express his personal gratitude. Your Majesty, for someone who learned cricket in refugee camps, being welcomed at Buckingham Palace feels almost impossible. This day will inspire not just me, but every young person in Afghanistan who dreams of achieving something extraordinary. The Queen's response reflected her deep understanding of sport's transformative power. Captain Nabe, your journey to this palace represents cricket's finest qualities: perseverance, hope, and the belief that excellence can emerge from the most challenging circumstances. Afghanistan's cricket development inspires us all. Mashraf Morteza, despite his physical limitations, moved with evident emotion as he prepared to leave. The afternoon had provided validation for his years of struggle with injuries and his determination to continue leading Bangladesh cricket despite medical advice suggesting retirement. Captain Morteza, Prince Harry said, recognizing the Bangladeshi captain's emotional state, your example shows that leadership comes from character rather than physical capability. That's a lesson that extends far beyond cricket. Faf du Plessis found himself surprisingly reluctant to leave the palace environment where the pressures of South African cricket expectations had somehow felt more manageable. The Queen's perspective on hosting major events had provided practical wisdom for dealing with World Cup pressures. The departure process was handled with typical palace efficiency, yet staff members clearly recognized that something special had occurred during the reception. The natural warmth between royal hosts and cricket guests had created an atmosphere that transcended normal protocol requirements. Owen Morgan, as the host nation's captain, was the last to leave, spending additional time discussing practical aspects of the upcoming tournament with Prince Harry. Their conversation covered everything from crowd management to media pressure, with the prince offering insights from his experience with high-profile public events. "Captain Morgan," the Queen said as he prepared to depart, "England carries unique responsibilities as host nation, but remember that your primary job remains leading your team effectively. When you focus on cricket excellence, the broader objectives tend to take care of themselves." This advice would prove influential in Morgan's approach to the tournament pressures he faced in the following weeks. The Queen's perspective on balancing competing responsibilities provided a framework for managing the complex demands of leading England's World Cup campaign. As the final captain departed through the palace gates, both the Queen and Prince Harry remained in the reception hall, reflecting on an afternoon that had clearly exceeded their expectations. The cricket captains had proven to be engaging, thoughtful individuals whose dedication to their sport and understanding of their broader responsibilities had impressed both royal hosts. The Queen's decision to extend a reception with a private tour of cricket memorabilia had transformed a standard ceremonial occasion into something more meaningful. The connections formed between cricket leaders and royal heritage would influence how these captains approached their upcoming responsibilities. Palace staff began the careful process of returning the reception hall to its normal configuration, but the conversations and connections from the afternoon would continue reverberating throughout the cricket world. Word of the extended reception and meaningful discussions would spread among cricket administrators and fans, enhancing the tournament's significance. The cricket captains departed with new understanding of their roles as temporary custodians of cricket traditions and values. Their performances in the upcoming World Cup would be influenced by the afternoon's insights about leadership, responsibility, and sports' capacity to unite diverse cultures around shared appreciation for excellence and fair play. The royal reception had achieved its ceremonial objectives while creating something more lasting. Connections between cricket's contemporary leaders and the sport's historical heritage, mediated by royal hosts who understood both cricket's significance and the responsibilities that came with representing nations on sport's biggest stages. As evening approached over Buckingham Palace, the cricket memorabilia collection returned to its quiet preservation of cricket history, but it had gained new significance through its role in connecting contemporary cricket leaders with their sport's royal heritage and enduring values.